I want to split this episode into two parts. The first part, I want to be talking about the addictiveness of social media and how it uses clever algorithms to keep you on there. Secondly, with that addictive nature in mind, I'd like to discuss how comparing yourself to people on social media can be a very negative thing. And this is a storyline that's quite played out over recent years, but it's still definitely worth discussing, and we'll get into some more detail on that a little bit later. But to start with, let's talk about the addictive part of social media. I've listened to a few podcasts and watched videos of people talking about social media and the issues around it. Recently, I watched a video by Dr. Andrew Huberman, and he talks about the dopamine rush that you get when you first go on social media. So if you've had a bit of a time off social media, or you've just taken, a break, or you've been on a flight and you first open, let's say, Instagram, you get that sudden rush of dopamine, that kind of excited feeling. It's all about discovering and pursuit and kind of like a go, go, go atmosphere. That dopamine is something that's synonymous with taking drugs such as cocaine, whereby for anyone that's ever seen anyone who's taken cocaine or perhaps taken it themselves, you feel that real burst of energy and you just want to go and do stuff that's all really exciting. It's the same kind of thing, but obviously not to that same level. Serotonin, just as a little sidebar, does the opposite of this. It gives you feelings of satisfaction and comfortability with what you have. And that's why for anyone that's ever come across antidepressants and SSRIs, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, will know that part of the side effect you get from taking this drug is it kind of checks you out of life, and it can have a negative effect if you take too much of it. Then you can be so checked out that just nothing matters, and then they'll kind of wind down the dosage. But that's just a little sidebar. Anyways, back to dopamine. When you first go back on social media, as I say, you get that dopamine hit. It's all very exciting. You want to just kind of scroll, see this. But very quickly, that initial dopaminergic reaction dissipates, and Dr. Huberman describes what happens next as more of a compulsive reaction. I'm sure you can relate to this. I certainly can. When you're just scrolling on Reels or whatever it may be, and you've been scrolling for a while, and suddenly you kind of have an out-of-body experience. You're like, why am I still doing this? I've been on this for however long, and I don't even know why I'm scrolling now. And that is what this is referring to. But as I referred to at the start, the algorithms are pretty smart, and they're clever at keeping you on these Reels and keeping you scrolling. How does it do this? Well, one way, or the main way, is through a reward system called random intermittent reward. And this is something I came across over the last few months, and I found it really, really interesting. There's been studies on kind of rewards and responses to rewards that go way, way back. But the study I kind of looked at, and it's been referenced, is one from the 1930s. And I actually heard about this through a guy called Richard Shotton, who wrote a book called The Illusion of Choice, which is a really, really interesting read, predominantly looking at marketing strategies, but really, really fascinating. And this guy back in the 1930s called B.F. Skinner, he studied rats, as a lot of these kind of scientific studies at least start on. He'd put a rat in a box, and the box had a lever that, when pressed, would release a sweet, something a rat likes to eat. Anyway, so to start with, the rat just kind of chills around, eventually bumps into it, and the rat gets this reward. And then he realizes, oh, all I need to do is bump into this thing and I'll get a reward. So he keeps on doing it. Reward. But what's interesting is when the experimenter then stops giving the rat the reward. Very quickly, the rat just kind of doesn't care. It realizes that pressing the lever is now redundant, and it just goes on with its life. The second condition with a new rat and a new box, again, the box has the lever, but this time what the lever does is it doesn't provide a reward every single time the lever is pushed. So the rat will push it, and sometimes it will do nothing. On another occasion, the rat might push it, and he might get 2 sweets. On another occasion, maybe 1. And so on, so on. So it's random, the reward system. And I should say it does average out, so it's kind of 1 each push, but there can be gaps in between. You could get 0, 0, 0, or kind of 0, 3 rewards. It's random. When eventually the experimenter stopped giving the rat rewards, as it did in the first one, it took the rat much, much longer to kind of accept that had stopped happening. It would keep pressing the lever and hoping that it'd get something. And when compared to the first condition, where it was just 1 press, 1 reward, the rat took much, much longer to move away from this habit it had developed. Now, you may think, why am I telling you this? This isn't the Rat podcast. What's it got to do with Instagram and Instagram Reels? Well, when you're on Instagram and you're scrolling on Reels, time can go by before you actually see something you care about. And that goes to what I was just saying about random intermittent rewards. You could be scrolling 3, 4, 5, 10 times before you see something you like, and then suddenly you find that thing and it's like quite exciting and you watch it and whatever. And then you're just scrolling again. You never know when that next thing is coming. It could be the next reel, it could be in 10 reels time. So in many sense, we're just like those rats pressing the lever, hoping that we'll get that next hit of reward. And this gets reinforced the more and more you do it and becomes a deeply embedded habit. So that's just the start. I wanted to, like I say, talk a bit about the addictive side. And it's not just Instagram, it's all of these type TikTok, YouTube. It's their job, I guess, to keep you on these sites. And I'm certainly not demonizing social media at all. I use it as much as the next person, but it's just interesting to look at the big picture of how you're encouraged to stay on there. The main thing though I wanted to discuss on this episode was actually the comparative side of Instagram, and I guess the danger of seeing all these people be really successful and what that can do to you. Now, I don't really have any research I'm going to cite for the rest of this, or studies or books or people. I just wanted to freeball it and talk about how I view the whole situation, and maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, it's my own opinion. But I think as humans, and this is something that's actually come up in different podcasts and such that I've read, but as humans, we're not just designed to be happy and content. We're designed to want to do better than the person next to you. And this is slightly a scathing indictment of human nature, but it is true. And I think if you look at yourself and think really honestly, you don't just want to be doing well, you want to be doing better than the person that lives next door to you, or I don't know, your friends. And it's kind of, I don't know if it's mean saying that, it's human nature, but we're wired to be comparing ourselves constantly with everyone else. You just look at how people show status, and at quite a ground level, showing status is done through showing that you have nice things, maybe a nice suit or a nice bag or a nice pair of trainers. You buy these expensive designer brands to show other people around you that you're high status or whatever it may be. But when you take that natural kind of human nature and go on Instagram, you bear in mind what we just discussed about the addictive nature of Instagram and other social media sites. And all you're seeing is people who are successful, most likely, if you're following them on Instagram, whether it's celebrities or just people that are doing very, very well. And you're stuck on these sites, but all you see is success, success, success. How does that make you feel? It makes me feel quite shit. And honestly, sometimes you feel a bit kind of worthless. And it's not good to define your own worth by the people around you, but I think intrinsically we just can't help it. So in that sense, it's not a good place to be. And I think especially because a lot of what you see on Instagram is just that snapshot of a person's life that may not be even representative of how their life is as a whole. And I've spoken a bit about this before, but most of the time on Instagram, it's just people, let's talk about, I don't know, bodybuilders. They just post that shot of them with perfect lighting after they've been in the gym for an hour with a great pump. They've got a little bit of sweat, so everything's kind of glistening. And they take that shot, it goes on Instagram. And then, I don't know, you go out the shower and you look at your own body and it's just not like that. You're not built the same. And sure, that person's probably in very good shape no matter what. But again, as we talked about before, think about the sacrifices they made to get there. Would you be prepared to make those same sacrifices? But also, their body probably doesn't look like that all the time. And I think within that community, there is a movement towards being more transparent about how bodies look when they're not at the gym and they're not looking perfect. And I think that's a good thing to do. But there's still a long way to go. And I think that specific example can be very, very damaging, especially to younger people who may just think that's how bodies are supposed to look. But this goes to any form of work or employment or just anyone you follow. You see the people doing really well and you see them, I don't know, at a party with loads of celebrities or in their really fancy suit or whatever, but it doesn't tell the whole story. And I think it can be quite a dangerous thing to witness if you don't bear in mind the big picture and what that person probably goes through on a daily basis. There's no real conclusion to this episode, really. It's just meant to be a discussion and raising the point. I love to dive more into this with other people, but to me, the main thing that we can do as ordinary people that are just living our lives is, and this is just my opinion and it's what works for me, is I try to do something that improves me each day. And that doesn't necessarily mean kind of breaking my back, doing hours and hours of work. While that may be improving, some days, like today's Monday, yesterday was Sunday. That's how the week works for anyone that's not familiar. But on Sunday, I just chilled out all day and I thought that was a pretty good day for improving. You know, I kind of reset. I'm ready to go for this week now. I feel like I've got more energy. So to me, getting better each day doesn't mean just putting head to the grindstone and just work, work, work. It's kind of thinking what's best for me right now. And that's something that I try and live by as best I can. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that I still do those things. I see people successful in the fields I want to go into, and it does make me feel a bit shit. Like, it just does. And I don't know if that's something that will ever completely go away for anyone. Maybe the really enlightened people, which, you know, it would be cool to feel that way. But I think find something that makes you happy. And like I've discussed before, the in-between bits make you happy. The process is enjoyable and it's exciting. And I think there you're on the right lines of removing yourself from the rat race that is seeing things on Instagram and just wishing you were them, or having a negative opinion of yourself because of what you see. Find the enjoyment in the process, and I think you are on the right lines. That's pretty much going to be it for this episode. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it informative and enjoyable. We're going to keep running with these. If you're listening to this on Spotify, go check it out on YouTube. If you want to see my face, which maybe not the sell I was aiming for, but I've just kind of got some new equipment and stuff, and I would love to have any feedback on that and just podcasts in general. I really, really appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.